Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Szabo, as you know, the Highway Trust Fund has not met the financial requirements for our infrastructure for quite a number of years and has required other money to be appropriated from other areas of the budget to meet those needs. And I see the Administration proposed funding Amtrak by rolling it into an expanded Transportation Trust Fund funded by what is, and maybe I'm ignorant to this, but financed with mandatory contract authority and discretionary obligation limitations. As you know, we already have a transit system in our cities that's part of the Highway Trust Fund designated funding stream, and we can't keep up with that, partially because they don't contribute to the Highway Trust Fund. So I'm just interested in why the Administration thinks that this is a good idea, other than taking away the discretionary process from Congress for Amtrak, and be more specific about how you think we can bring more money into what the Administration is calling an expanded Transportation Trust Fund.
Sure. First off, Congressman, I think it's real important to note that with the establishment of the Transportation Trust Fund, we are not, absolutely not, talking about diverting any of the existing revenues that go into the highway or transit program. We're not proposing that any of those be diverted for rail. But we are, in fact, recommending that rail become a part of a broader Transportation Trust Fund. You know, recognizing the fact that we have to look at transportation holistically, multimodally, and start positioning ourselves to where, for whether it's moving people or goods, we can use the mode that happens to be most efficient for a particular journey. And so rail, both passenger and freight, has clearly been the underutilized mode. And so we have to give it parity with the other modes. And so that's why it's important that it become a part of the trust fund. The funding for our 5-year reauthorization proposal comes from the $600 billion savings from the overseas drawdowns, allows $300 billion of that immediately to go to deficit reduction, and then takes $214 billion to go into the Transportation Trust Fund to fully fund the highway piece through the year 2020 in transit, and allow the $40 billion that we're requesting for rail reauthorization for our 5-year program.
So we're using the OCO funds, so-called OCO funds, off-seats contingency operation funds. Obviously, here in town, we've tried to use that for almost everything possible. As you know, we're planning to draw down anyway. So in my view, it would be like saying, you know, that I plan on buying a $40,000 car next year, and then when next year comes around, I say, well, I've decided not to buy the car, and all of a sudden my bank account has $40,000 in it because I didn't actually buy the car. So my point is that, you know, we already have trouble funding the Highway Trust Fund based on the current funding stream through the federal gas tax. I'm a little skeptical that with the proposal from the Administration that we wouldn't just get ourselves in a pretty significant bind, and it's really theoretical money that really doesn't exist because we're broke. And so I was just curious, like I said, other than taking away the annual or how many ever years we appropriate money to Amtrak or authorize money for Amtrak and then appropriate it annually, other than taking that away from Congress, what would be the benefit of putting Amtrak into a expanded Transportation Trust Fund?
Predictability. It not only comes back to the parity that I talked about, but predictability. For the first time with rail, we would be able to make long-range plans and predictably invest, just as we've been able to do now for, 7 decades for highways and roads, and you know, certainly several decades for aviation and transit. And so again, it comes back to the need to give rail parity with the other modes, allow us to balance our transportation network. And you know, in life, all of us have to make priorities and choose, and it doesn't mean necessarily one thing or the other. It means 2 or 3 things over here and not doing 3 or 4 things over here. And so taking the $600 billion in savings, directing $300 billion immediately to deficit reduction, and funding transportation with $214 billion, we believe are appropriate priorities. It helps us get our house in order both from a deficit reduction standpoint as well as making the very necessary upgrades to our transportation network, particularly for rail.
Thank you very much. I yield back.
Thank you.